Declan Brooks, welcome to the podcast, man. Thanks for coming on. I don't think we can start this anywhere else other than Olympic bronze medalist in BMX park. How do you even begin to describe how that one feels?
Yeah, it's very, very surreal. Obviously, like I started riding 16 years ago, and I didn't expect BMX to be an Olympic sport. And I didn't kind of want it to be at the time because you just get into riding, you love riding, you just want to hang out with your mates at the park and learn tricks and just have a good time. So, and then obviously 3 years ago it come about, and I knew I was a competition rider anyway, so I knew I wanted to be in the running for it. But we've got some crazy talent in this country, like as you know, like Alex Colborne, James Jones, Ben Wallace, like all heavy hitters on the team. So I didn't actually expect to be there. I just thought if I work hard, I have a chance. Um, and then obviously I got picked, and I thought, right, got to give it everything now, um, and went for it and paid off. Yeah, third place. I'm over the moon with third, honestly. Like to get a medal for me was the goal. So didn't matter which color.
Nah, it's absolutely class. Like you say, like you basically had like two big competitions. First one just being like getting yourself there with like such a competitive like field in the UK, and then obviously the Olympics itself. How does the Olympics like as an event or as a contest compare to like the world champs and the World Cups that you've been doing for like the last 3 or 4 years?
Before I was just trying to tell myself that it's the same. It's the same event. You get there and it's completely different. There's like 10,000 athletes there, and you're just like looking around at all these like massive dudes and like extremely fit women, and you're like, oh, I'm just a BMX rider.
Yeah,
Like, and then you kind of don't feel like you deserve to be there, and then you kind of get into the swing of things. You start meeting people, and you realize like everyone kind of has the same like mental attitude towards their own sports. It's just yeah, it was a weird feeling, but generally when we were riding on the course, it felt kind of the same. Same course, um, same like feel ramps, same riders. So that kind of felt pretty cool, just like just going through practice days and that sort of thing. But when the event come down to it, it did. You knew it was the Olympic Games.
one thing I thought must have been quite weird with it being at the Olympics, especially in the sort of COVID times that we live in, is that in one sense there was less spectators, as in physical spectators, at the event. But did you still have that sense of it being just bigger than anything you've ever done before, and kind of almost getting the
Yeah,
feeling of all those people watching at home?
yeah. It was at home. It was insane. Like every day, I was getting like so many text messages, like "How you feeling? How's the course riding?" And like, at that point, I was like, this isn't normal." Like, no, I only get like a text from my mum and dad and like a couple of like friends. Oh, how you good? Like, are you good? But then I was getting like 50, 100 a day, and the 2 days before, I just turned my phone off because I was just like it was getting like too much, and I was like, oh, now the pressure's building. I don't even need this. I can speak to everyone after the event, um, and the support was nice. The support was amazing, but I hadn't done anything at that point. You still obviously had a job to do. But yeah, do you know what? It was pretty cool, but yeah, it did get pretty stressful at one point.
Yeah, it's class. It's so cool to watch. I actually like wasn't able to like watch it live, so I like literally remember waking up in the morning and getting the news that obviously like you and Charlotte had like both absolutely smashed it. It was so class. To go to like the run itself, then I'm sure loads of people in the UK and all around the world will have literally had like their first taste of freestyle BMX that day, basically. And I'm
Yeah.
sure they must be thinking like, how the hell do you begin to like put a run like that together? How thought out is that run? Have you got it down to like the absolute meticulous to like
Yeah.
each and individual trick, all your lines, and you just basically work on that with the coaches and stuff like that?
Yeah, so obviously our coach is Jamie Bestwick, as most people probably would have heard of that are into BMX. He's a 15 times gold medalist at X Games, something like that. It's crazy numbers, but yeah, we for the month before, not many people know this, but we actually had a replica course built
Okay.
um, down in Birmingham. So it was us and Australia were the only two countries to have built one. So we had like almost a massive advantage. Even though we had 5 days practice, which is a lot more than normal, and you can kind of get your bearings in a couple of days anyway. Um, but we had a month in Birmingham just working this course out. A couple of things were different when we actually got there, but the hard work of like actually building a run was already done. So we knew like every point what we're going to do, uh, even to the point where I actually put a bit of tape on my handlebars and writ left on it,
Yeah.
um, because I knew there was this one part of the course that if I didn't stay left on the left hand side of a ramp, the whole run was done.
Really?
Um, and it wasn't, and I didn't necessarily look at it in my run, but when you're up there before your name's being called out, then you look down at your handlebars and you see it. So it kind of like it was just a little reminder to myself that because I knew if I didn't do that, then the run would have been so hard to pull back. Um, but it was quite funny. I think it was like 2 days before I was like, I'm gonna write that right on there, and they were like, sure, sure.
That's class. I think for people watching, if you've never seen BMX, whilst you're like literally cramming so many tricks into that run, I think I was watching earlier and it's like you're doing like a trick like every 6 seconds or something like that, like or more. Like big banger
Yeah,
tricks. It's insane. When I think as a rider, like how many attempts it would take me to do like each one, and then you're literally doing them back to back. But that double flip that I'm sure many punters at home were looking at, you had a bit of a battle with it, didn't you, in the previous event and had like a pretty gnarly crash. How did you go from that a few weeks before the Olympics, knocking yourself out, to not only getting yourself back physically, but also psychologically to getting yourself back in a place where you can even think about pulling that in the Olympic final?
it was pretty hard actually. Like, obviously, I knocked myself out on it, so I couldn't ride for the 10 days after that. And I didn't really do anything to my shoulder, but like I couldn't move my arm for like 3 days. It was just the impact on the shoulder just kind of shut down all like your my shoulder area, so I couldn't lift my arm. But it got better really quickly, and then by then my concussion was kind of dying out. Um, and then at that point, I knew when I could ride again, I, I was just like, I need to go and do it now. I just had to go do it because if I didn't, then I probably would have never done it again. A double flip is one of those tricks that took quite a few people out, um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's a gnarly one. Even every time I do it, it's as scary as almost the first time I did it.
Yeah,
Um,
I can imagine.
but yeah, it was just about getting back in the park, doing it again, and almost trying to forget about it, which is impossible. Um, but it's almost just like the reason why I crashed was because I tried to do it at the end of a run, uh,
Yeah, okay, you're just a bit
and
tired.
yeah, you're tired, and it's almost a completely different trick at that point. So I knew I could still do the trick at the end of a run. Obviously, would have been tough, and yeah, probably would have done the same thing again. Um, but I just thought I know I can do this. If I drop in and just do it, it's good. Um, and that's how I had to try and think about it. But for sure, when they call your name up at the start, that's probably the only thing that's going through your head at that point.
Or just
But
double
you
flip,
just
double flip.
we yeah, yeah. But we kind of worked. We got a British Cycling have a psychologist, and we worked quite closely together, especially after that crash, because he was just like, at that point, I was already picked for the games. They knew I wanted to do that trick again, so we were working on stuff that would help, kind of like obviously finish a run, but to not think about the double flip too much. Um, so the technique we used was you just think about every trick at a time. So when I started on that top deck, it was the first trick was a 720 on the spine, straight into the double flip. But it was don't think of the double flip until you land that 720. And then obviously once that double flip's done, forget about it. It's done now, and you just take every trick at a time, and don't think forward to tricks that you're scared of. And it does take a lot of work, like behind the scenes, to like work on that technique, but it helps massively. And it's
Yeah,
quite
that's
mad to
cool.
think, obviously, like if we went back 5 years doing techniques like that in BMX, people would be like, well, to be fair, people probably still are. But
Yeah,
I think when you get to like this sort of level, you have to start doing that.
yeah. It's kind of like in some ways it's this kind of like, well, it is this extreme sort of underground sport that so many people have been doing for ages, and then with the introduction of the Olympics, and then British cycling and performance coaching stuff come on board. Like, have you seen like just a map? Because I guess you've been right at the front of it and seen it all happen with your involvement with British cycling and your sort of route to the Olympics. How sort of massive has that change been from how you were operating like 4 years ago to how you are now?
Yeah, massive, massive. Obviously, when we first got onto the program, everyone had injuries, and you were just riding through them. But that's a norm for most bike riders out there today. You always have a niggling injury, but you manage to ride through it somehow. Uh, and sometimes you get treatment for it. Other times you just think, oh, I'll just ride it off. Um,
Yeah,
but that kind of showed us like we got fit way quicker. We got our injuries looked at, and we almost got better straight away, just from getting the right treatment. We had obviously coaching support that we would have never had before. Um, you could always reach out to people like Jamie, but to have a coach like there, it was a bit weird at the start. Um, and again, some people needed to be coached more than others in certain areas, but I think everything that we've done has been like amazing for us in our sport, and we wouldn't be the riders we are now if it wasn't for any one of those things.
well, I can only imagine it must be insane for you guys, growing up, looking up to someone like Jamie Bestwick, winning, I don't know, like you said before, 15 X Games gold medals or something insane like that. To have him as a coach, at what point did you hear that he was going to be the sort of performance coach for you guys?
So it was pretty early on, before the team was even announced. Jamie kind of said, "Oh, I'd like to be involved somehow," um, and then it quickly come around to he wants to be the coach. Obviously, none of us had any problem with that. Um, it was kind of weird at first because he was based in America and we were here. So a normal coach would obviously be there with you all the time, and it was pretty hard for especially for Charlotte, because Charlotte and Jamie work a bit more together than the lads. So to do like Zoom calls about riding's hard because Jamie's not at the session, and you need to be kind
Yeah.
of there to realise what's going on. It's a hard one, and we've managed to get through it over the last 4 years, and that's why we kind of go out to America quite a lot to go to Woodward to kind of be there with him, um, and then those trips are always so beneficial for us as well, like just to get out of the country as well during COVID times. Um, that was massive because this country was it was so negative at one point, like it was so hard to ride through, with stuff going on, just like it was nice to get there, just get in a positive mind frame almost, and it was just nice to just ride and think about nothing else.
So you talk about like Woodward, which is obviously this insane like training facility. Just to link back to use like they say the double backflip as an example, because I'm sure loads of people. I've got a little bit of experience, not with double backflips, but just learning tricks and know that sort of process. But I think a lot of people listening might not. How do you go from never pulling one of those before and to actually pulling one onto like hard wood or concrete?
It was really weird actually because I always said I would never do that trick. I'll never do it. Like I knew I could do it at one point, but I just thought, no, I'm not even going to try it because it might make me want to do it, and I actually don't. I don't want to do it.
You don't
Um,
trust your future self.
yeah, yeah. But it was in the like thick of COVID last year in like June time, and we obviously no events were happening. We were in the indoor skate parks on our own, and it was just like, right, what should we learn? Pretty much. Um, so we started like trying tricks, and I was like, oh, I'll try a double flip, and then it just worked straight away
Yeah.
because
Do you do it into
it
foam
was
pit?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was well overdue. Like I could have done it years ago, and that's why it worked straight away. And I was almost annoyed because I was just like, now I've got to do it. Um,
Yeah.
so I probably did it for like a month in the foam pit, like just over and over, and every time was perfect. But I was like, I'm not going to rush with it. There is no rush because we don't have any events this year. So I just kind of bashed it in the foam pit for a good while, and then one day I was just like, it's time. A trick like that it definitely scares you. But you just got to trust what you do. Any trick you do in a foam pit, or you just got to go full commitment when you do it for properly. And then obviously go from resi to wood. That was an even bigger step because it's for real at this point.
When was the first one you pulled to wood then?
I think it was around September last year.
Ah, cool. Still
Yeah.
pretty impressive to go from doing it in the foam pit for the first time and then like maybe 16 months later to be pulling it in the final twice.
Yeah.
It's pretty good
Yeah.
going, really, isn't it? Do you think you benefited from
Yeah.
not having to rush it then? Like, do you think if the Olympics were last year, you would have been struggling to get it in time?
I've said to everyone, COVID's almost the best thing that happened to me in terms of my riding career, because it just gave me time to just work on stuff. Whereas before, there's always a competition coming up, so you're like, I'll just get everything I can do dialed, but not really learn anything new. Yeah, it was the best thing to kind of have a good like year to just work on stuff. And I know for a fact if the Olympics happened when it was meant to, I wouldn't have got a medal.
It's cool that you have like the sort of modesty to say that rather than to be like, oh no, I would have definitely come third, like regardless, even if it was last year. So fair play for being honest on that one. Like, to go back to like the competition itself, before your run, you obviously Charlotte Worthington in the women's event, which was it a few hours before your event? Or was it just straight, immediately before?
It was like straight in. It was like 15 minutes difference.
Really? So you obviously saw her winning gold, which must have been such a buzz to see one of your teammates. Was it a massive help and an inspiration, or was it a bit of a double-edged sword, and was there a little bit of extra pressure after her doing what she did just before your event?
Yeah, for sure, it was a double-edged sword. Basically, how it kind of started with the BMX races the day, 2 days previously.
Yeah, of course.
So we were sharing an apartment with those guys. So and we didn't know them really well, but we knew who they were, and then like we were getting to know them throughout the week, and then they do their qualifying, they get through, then they go and get a gold and a silver, and then obviously we're watching on the TV at home, and we're just going mental. Then they come back, and we're just like looking at their medals, like right, we've got to do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
So then that was almost it was motivation and pressure. But then what happened with those guys is exactly the same as what happened with us. Kai went and got a silver, and then within 10 minutes, Bethany Shriever had to go and race, knowing that her like teammate just got a silver, and so their psychologist is the same as ours, and they actually spoke about that the day before with Beth. What will you do if Kai goes and gets a medal?
Yeah. Okay.
So it was more about having the conversation and putting that thought in your head before it actually happens. So the psychologist come to me the night before and said, like, what happens if Charlotte goes and gets a medal? We spoke about it, and I was basically just had it in my head, like, she's going to get a medal. I don't know which one. I know if she pulls her run, it's probably going to be a gold. But that run was obviously like, that was a big run. So I didn't know if it was even possible. So yeah, I kind of just had it in my head, right, she's getting a medal. I almost like, I'd like it to be a gold, but I didn't know how big it would be if she did get a gold. So that still shook me up a bit. And obviously, yeah, when she got the gold, I went down there, we were all celebrating, and then it was almost like, oh crap, I've got to go ride now. So yeah, it was pressure. It was both. It was pressure and motivation. Like, it was amazing to see her just like fully shut it down. And like and basically changed women's game forever now. But yeah, like, it was hard. It was hard to compose myself after it, for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, obviously looking back, we can now say that it definitely worked. Whatever it did, it worked.
Yeah.
And you stomped like not only your first run but also your second run. And then you went into second place. Is that, am I right in saying, like after your second run?
Yeah, yeah. I did my first run. I think it put me up near the top, and then a couple of people went, and I think it bumped me down to like third. Then the second run I went out on put me into second, just above Daniel Dares. Um, then he come out, beat me, so I was pushed into third, and then it was like the longest wait of my life.
I can imagine.
I think it was the French kid, Anthony John. He crashed, and then it was just down to the Japanese kid, Rim. Um, and he's fully capable of doing anything. Um, yeah, again, he's got his home crowd. Um, but I was just thinking, right, he's at home, pressure. He's 19, he's young, pressure. I was just thinking, right, just put a foot down, man, just put a foot down. And he actually pulled a full run, but you could kind of see halfway through his run, he went offline. And he just looked a bit lost, everyone could see that. So, but until that score come in, I was just like, anything could happen here.
So how long actually was it? Like, you know, in terms of minutes, like what is the time from
Uh,
you've pulled your second run and to when you actually know that you've got a medal?
it was a good half an hour because I qualified quite low. I think I qualified seventh. So it would have been around about probably 20 minutes actually. It wouldn't have been that long,
And how
but
long
it
did it
just
feel?
felt like an hour. It was, yeah, it was a tough
Yeah.
wait.
What's the first like emotion that hits you when you actually
Well,
finally do see his like score and it's confirmed?
to be fair, we just went mental. Jamie was there, James Jones was there, Rich King was there, the team manager. Charlotte come down, and we were just hugging and just like, I'm sure we all cried at that point. And it was just like, which is quite mad, really, because like generally in a normal contest, you wouldn't really cry too much over a result. Uh,
Yeah.
but there, it was just like, I think just the massive build up over the last 4 years, and like the emotion just like of actually achieving something. It's just like it just everyone just let it out.
It must have been insane. It looked pretty rowdy. One of the things you mentioned there was James Jones, and I think I saw you post something about it on Instagram. I've met James a couple of times. Um, he's obviously an insane rider. How did that set work? Was he basically like an alternate in case you got injured or in case somebody else got injured? So he's kind of on
Yeah, yeah.
standby to compete.
Yeah, so before we went, obviously we knew there was going to be an alternate come out with us just in case something happened. And yeah, he got picked to be that alternate. And like it was so hard for him because obviously you get there, you probably know you're not going to ride the event, but you've got to almost sit there and watch everything happen. Um, and it's almost harder than what I had to do there. Because you just like, although he was so happy for me and we're best mates, and he just loved watching it. Obviously, he's going to want to ride, and want to like show everyone what he can do. Um, so I was just so thankful that he was just like an absolute legend on that trip. He just did everything for us, and just like, what do you need? Anything you need? Do you want me to do anything out on the course today? Like, he was all for us, and yeah, amazing.
Yeah, now that's class to hear because it must have been, like you say, it must be quite a hard one because he's obviously been trying to get there himself and is an insane rider too. To kind of like
Yeah,
have to take a step back and like sort of take on a different role must have been pretty challenging. So fair play to him for
yeah,
embracing that
yeah.
one. What's like everyone back home is just always dying to like get little snippets of like what the actual village and Olympic experience is like. Is there any inside scoop of like capers going on in the Olympic Village that you can share with us?
Uh, to be fair, everything's like it was kind of chill this year because obviously COVID and everything. You had to stay in the village. You couldn't leave for anything. Um, we had like on after the event, we kind of like had drinks out on the field. But it almost seemed like um, everything happened on that night. Like the field was just packed. Everyone was drinking. And it was a sick vibe actually. But yeah, nights before we hadn't really heard much because we were right next to our village tower block. Sorry, was right next to that field, and we didn't hear anything. And then it was almost like everyone's event finished that day, even though Yeah, it just went mad. So that was a good night. It obviously would have been nice to like go out and like just venture out a little bit. Um, but other than that, there not too much happened in the village really.
Were you guys pretty much like stuck to your own little team bubble and strictly not allowed outside the village kind of thing, other than going to your venue?
Yeah, but so like every athlete, basically every person in that village was in the same bubble. So there was like 10,000 people in one bubble really, but everyone went to their event on on a certain coach and back to the village. So no one if you left the village, you then couldn't
Right. Okay.
come back in. So yeah, it was to be fair though, it was cool. There was the food at the village was amazing, like a massive food hall. Um, yeah, there was plenty to do as well, just like table tennis and all that sort of things. Yeah, we had a good laugh.
That's cool. It must just been like a slightly more stressful environment than usual, just with everything that's going on. But how stressed were you guys about actually either A, getting COVID while you're out there? Not necessarily because you'd be worried about getting sick, but because of what it would mean for your
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Olympic journey. And then not even that, but actually just being like flagged as like a contact of someone who'd tested positive. Were you like just constantly living in stress
yeah.
of like
It's yeah.
getting it?
They the Japanese government made everyone download these apps on your phone. It's like the NHS app, like the track and trace thing. So like if you, it's the same thing. You can get pinged out there as well. So like it was stressful the whole time because you just like just don't ping, just don't ping. But the good thing was like if you did get pinged, then as long as you're vaccinated, you can just test yourself.
Oh, okay.
Well, they'll test you, and if you don't have it, then you're good. But
Okay, cool.
if you weren't vaccinated, then you'd have to isolate for 14 days.
Okay.
So that's why they were trying to get everyone vaccinated before we went out. Um, but yeah, it was pretty stressful because you're just like this could ruin my everything I've
Yeah.
been working for.
It's just like such an external thing that you just, well, you can have a little bit of control over it, but not really. Like you could take
Yeah,
every
no,
precaution in the world and
exactly.
still get flagged. So I saw there was a few examples of that. Luckily, it didn't happen as much as it looked like it could have. I think there was like
Yeah,
a GB, was it shooter or something like that? She literally tested
yeah.
positive just before she flew out, and
Couldn't
like
go.
that's her like Olympic journey over. It's pretty mad.
Yeah, it's pretty
But
heartbreaking, isn't it?
one other thing that I noticed at the Olympics, and I'm sure other people did, and it was more noticeable maybe in BMX and skate than it would be in other events, was the Olympics is quite unique in terms of like branding restrictions and stuff like that for athletes. Like you're obviously used to watching World Cups and World Champs, and everyone's or many athletes are obviously have their branded bikes. They might have a Red Bull helmet, a Monster helmet. What's the reason that you don't see perhaps like a Red Bull helmet or a Monster helmet in
Yeah,
the Olympics?
I think it's down to the Olympic sponsors, the country sponsors. So obviously the Olympic sponsors have like Samsung. I don't know. They have loads. Anyway, and Team GB also have a lot of sponsors like Adidas, DFS, Dreams. Um, so basically, and they pay a lot of money to put on the games. So for riders to come along during that 2 or 3 week Olympic thing, you've got to represent their sponsors. Um, and obviously, some of the riders like Daniel Dares, Kenneth Tensio, ride for Red Bull. So I don't know if you saw on their helmet, but they kind of half did it.
Yeah, it was
There
like
was no
their countries, but in like Red Bull font or something.
in the font.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they played it quite smart there. I know Nick Bruce turned up with a Rockstar helmet, but it just had the yellow star,
Mhm.
but no like branding in it. But they told him he couldn't wear it. It was
Oh,
too
really?
much. Yeah, that was too much. So a couple of people got caught out, but generally the smarter ones prevailed.
Yeah, I think I saw in it was either Daniel Dares or Kenneth. Is it Tennessee? Tennessee?
Yeah,
He had some tape on one of his helmets as well. Did he get told that he have to cover his up as well?
maybe. Yeah, I think that was Kenneth Tensio, and I think I think there was one bit that he had to cover up. Um, might have just gone too far on that one.
Nah, it's always a difficult one, I suppose, because like you say, those companies have paid so much money to put the games on,
Yeah,
but then at the same time, some of these brands have obviously supported athletes.
yeah. I think
It's a bit of a tough one.
it's just while the games are on, and it's a bit of a crap one for like athletes because that's where you can earn probably the most money during that time. Um, so it is a shame, but you kind of get why they do it because they're trying to protect their sponsors, and
Yeah.
I see both sides.
Yeah, I guess for yourself, like you've had so much support from British cycling, but at the same time, the Olympics is like such a focal point for your career over the past 3 years. It would be such a like a big thing for you to be able to offer a sponsor.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. It would.
but
Yeah,
then you have to say to them, "Oh, by the way, lucky you
I
could
can't
sponsor me, but
represent
I
you.
can't wear your helmet. I've got to cover your logos up from the Olympics." They're like, "Oh, right, okay."
Yeah, yeah.
But
Okay, we
nah,
won't bother.
you mentioned a little bit at the start when we were talking about how you just would never have expected to be an Olympian or Olympic medalist, and you even sort of alluded to the fact that you maybe weren't like at the time you weren't too sure whether BMX even should be in the Olympics, and that's still like I dare say you've changed your sort of you've come round on that one. Many BMXers maybe still aren't for the whole Olympics being part or BMX being part of the Olympics. What's your sort of thoughts on that whole debate in terms of Olympics taking on BMX?
Yeah, I think I can see why some people don't want it to be an Olympic sport, but it's the Olympics, the riders that are involved, it's such a small minority of people in the BMX community. It doesn't really affect many people. Um, and I can almost guarantee that everyone that isn't for it probably still watched it. And if they and I'd and if they didn't think it was good, they're probably lying because honestly, everyone, I've not heard one bad thing about it since. I've heard before it happened, I heard a lot of bad stuff and like people weren't up for it, but since it's kind of like I've not heard anything bad and I've not seen anything bad. Um, and it just seems like the sport is just going to go absolutely crazy. We've just had £1 million worth of funding put in into certain venues and to for a national series. For me, it's only a good thing, and I think for kids coming into the sport, it's only a good thing. Um, and this is what we love. Like we want to show it to as many people as possible. I don't see why we should keep it small.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's just my view on it. I just want people to love BMX as much as I do, get into it. Um, and if we can keep as many indoor skate parks open as possible, it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think it's such a hard one because people want it to grow, but then sometimes people are like, "Oh, we don't want it to grow in that direction, whatever." But at the
Yeah,
end of the day, you just
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
have to let it go, let it go out there, and see what
yeah,
happens. You mentioned like the funding that's just been announced in the last like day or two. I saw a little snippet about that, but I don't really know a great deal other than that.
yeah.
What's the deal with that?
So I think I think it's British Cycling that put the money up. So £1 million, it's going towards different venues around the UK and skate parks. Um, I think a training facility, basically, let's say a training facility, it's just the replica skate park that we built. That's going to get put up somewhere around the country, probably Manchester, I'd imagine, um, for everyone to go and ride. Um, it's going to get a national series going. So right now that we don't really have any competitions in this country, and this will be like a pathway competition for kids,
Mm-hmm.
which I think have always been needed because when I was growing up, I used to come up to Unit 23 all the time and ride the little comps there. Um,
Yeah,
but other than that, there wasn't a whole lot going on. And when I was a kid, I just wanted to ride competitions. So I think it's a good pathway. The BMX racing does it, and they've done it quite well over the last few years. And they've seen a massive growth in their sport. So hopefully, obviously, but coming off the Olympics, kids get involved and they have something to look forward to and like go for, I guess.
yeah. It's funny that you say that. Like it is pretty insane when you think, even though BMX will be considered by loads of people to be quite, or freestyle BMX to be like relatively small. there's still quite a lot of people that do it, and it's pretty mad. Even without anything going on with the Olympics, it's pretty mad that there isn't a more sort of recognised, structured like competition series and national series. So it'd be pretty cool to see that happen. I think if it does, it'll just be insane.
Yeah, well, BMX is not small, not exactly small in this country, and like no, I think they tried to do a series a few years back, but it didn't really take off that well, for one reason or another. But yeah, hopefully this one does.
When I searched Declan Brooks BMX, like 2 of the sort of first 8 videos that came up, I think the first one was like the BBC official run of you winning bronze. And then like 5 down, it was like 11 years ago or 12 years ago. I think you
Yeah,
would have been, what, 13? It was like the Declan Brooks, like Paperboy BMX edit. And it was so cool to
yeah,
see, like, literally this little kid. Obviously, you can tell that you've got the skills. But it was just really cool to see that. And I suppose, can you imagine like telling like that kid that's in the video that BMX is going to be in the Olympics? B, you're going to be there, and C, you're going to win a medal.
it's just crazy. Like obviously back then there was a lot of other kids around that were a lot better than me. But I just think it's down to me just like constantly putting in hard work, and like I was never the most talented kid, or it was never easy, but I just kind of plugged away over all these years. And I imagine if you would have said to like anyone back then, it's going to be Declan that's going and he's going to get a medal, everyone probably would have said, nah,
Yeah.
not a chance. Um, which, and even then, I'd have probably said that as well. I was just a shy kid and just loved riding, but didn't really speak to didn't really speak to people. I was just always like just a quiet kid. But yeah, I like sometimes I'll like every couple of years I'll just go and watch a couple of those old videos and just like it's just funny. I used to just love going and just setting up a camera, filming a few clips and chucking it on YouTube. Yeah,
You're
it's
ahead of
pretty
your
cool.
time, man. I was like looking at it, I was like 12 years ago on the YouTube channel game, like could have been the first vlogger. Like you were saying that about like you would never expect it like to have been in the Olympics, and you would have never, but more importantly, never expected like you to be the representative. When I like look at like the riding that you do compared to say like James Jones, Alex Coburn, that there's definitely like a distinct difference in the way that you ride in terms of like you're not as trick orientated as maybe those guys are, but you like make up for that in terms of like transfers, maybe like
Yeah,
some other tricks, like some old school tricks like double bars and stuff like that. Or what
yeah,
would you call that? Like it's kind of like a Nyquist trick almost, isn't it?
yeah,
Do you
yeah.
do you
It's like
think?
I've always called it like a raw dog double bar spin, but I don't actually
Yeah.
know the proper term for it.
Do you think like having that style, and then how that style then fits into like being able to put in consistent runs, is that been a big part of why you made it to Olympics and why you got that bronze?
Probably a massive factor towards it. That's always kind of like been what I've enjoyed doing, and like putting like big, smooth, flowy runs together. Um, and then just chucking a few little tricks here and there. But like I've always preferred just to like hit stuff fast and try and go as high as I can. Um, over the last sort of couple of years, I've had to kind of dial it back a little bit and put a few more tricks in. Um, but I think that's where like the double flips come into things, like because it's such a massive trick. I don't need to do as many other smaller tricks because you've got the big lines with the big tricks. It works quite well, and I've only really seen the benefits of it since really the Olympics. It would have been the World Champs as well, but I crashed at that. Um, I think I would have probably got second otherwise, um, second or third anyway. But yeah, I've not really seen too much of like where that's going to get me in the future, um, because I've obviously only learned a couple of these bigger tricks recently. Um, but I'm quite looking forward to obviously getting back riding in the next couple of months and doing all these more contests and see where that can get me.
Not to take anything away from what those guys are doing, it's just sometimes quite refreshing to then see someone
Yeah,
like come out like yourself come out the gates. It just like almost just seems like just that much more speed, and then start just hitting, like obviously like you say,
yeah,
you're still doing those big tricks, like you're ticking the boxes there, But then I think as a rider as well, especially like, even though I'm not a BMX rider, still like appreciate just like someone just boosting a big quarter or doing a big transfer or doing a trick that maybe isn't like on the list of most of the other folk in the final. Do you think in terms of judging, it must be such a difficult job for judges to say compare such different styles within a same final? Like, how does the judging process even work? Actually, I don't even know.
Yeah, do you know what, mate? I actually don't know either. So it's got to be the hardest job, because how do you compare my run to Daniel Dares's run, which Daniel Dares did probably twice as many tricks as me, but he stayed half as low as I did. I did double as good lines as he did. So it's basically just done on overall impression and what that judge prefers, really. You can't deny someone the win if they've done the biggest and craziest tricks, really. But then when you get into like the nitty gritty of stuff, it's just down to preference. Like I always tell people, it's like an overall impression, because no trick is worth a certain amount of points. It's just how well you kind of got through that run. You're then comparing trick for trick with people. Say Daniel Dare's got a 92, they'll just say, was I better or worse than him? If it was worse, but it was only by a little bit, just give him a 91. And it's basically just slotting people in the places they think rode better than other people, rather than an actual score. And that's why I feel like it's always the worst to go to ride first in a competition, because you're just setting the bar at that point. The score's irrelevant. You're just kind of the first name on the board, and then people are just going to probably get put above you.
Yeah.
It's a hard job, that one.
Yeah, I definitely don't envy those guys. Do you, when you're doing your run, are you like, one thing I noticed that Daniel, I guess he's just so experienced at competition. He's probably run twice as many competitions as any of the people in that final.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed he's always really good at is he like literally, he always will get like almost that like sort of buzzer trick. How like meticulous are you mapping your run out to like basically make sure that like you're doing something at the end, or is it almost impossible to get it that sort of?
No, you can get it down to the second pretty much.
Yeah.
I wasn't really that happy with the way I finished my run. There was something that I wanted to do, but when I got there, I was just too tired, and I knew I wouldn't have pulled it. I wouldn't have pulled it if I'd have tried it, and then hence I wouldn't have got a medal either. So it was probably the best thing I did that I didn't try it. But then again, if I did pull it, then it probably would have got me second. But I just kind of just went into it half-hearted, so I just didn't bother. But yeah, honestly, you can get a trick on the buzzer. And what we do as well is generally how they judge is they give you 3 seconds from the buzzer after it.
Okay.
So if the buzzer goes and you're nearly at a ramp, they'll basically give you 3 seconds to get a trick done. So
okay, cool.
Theoretically you have got a minute and 3 seconds. So it's quite easy to get a trick on the buzzer. And he's just the best at that.
I guess that can work like the other way. If you crash after the buzzer, it'll still count.
Yeah. If you crash on 1 minute, 1 minute 2 seconds, and you crash, it counts. So yeah, it can go completely the other way.
Definitely don't envy me and like Danny and all the other like street trials boys. Like, if we just basically do shows and make videos for Instagram, like as much as we like love watching you guys, the overwhelming like or the most popular comments usually like, this is class, but I'm glad it's not us. Like those boys will have it pretty hard.
Yeah.
But it's just insane what you guys can fit in. Like when I think of like how long it takes us to get like a little Instagram clip, and then you guys go and then put it all like back to back, whether it's like you guys or whether it's like the BMX street guys, it's just wild.
Yeah. Crazy.
2024 is obviously the next Olympics. Have you got pretty clear aspirations to be there and be competing?
Yeah, definitely. It'd be nice if they give us some more spots, because obviously they only gave us nine for the men and nine for the women, uh, and that's a short field. Like only each country gets one rider, so it'd be nice if they kind of gave us a few more spots, and then a couple of countries can take a couple of riders. I'm still going to go into it the same as I went into this one. Just give it everything, and hopefully I can make it there again.
Is in terms of like the GB selection, is it very much like clean slate for like this new cycle, or
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
still get like some sort of preference because you've been there and you've had a medal?
That's obvious. That will always get taken into account now, I think. But it's clean slate. Like if you're not informed that year, then you're not going, and that's how it should be. Like whoever's in form and whoever's riding the best should get to go. I don't even want special treatment to be honest,
Yeah,
because if we get special treatment here, then at the games you don't. Logan Martin doesn't roll over for anyone.
yeah.
So, oh yeah, it'll be a harder gig there. So I'd rather just put the work in now and then um, hopefully get another medal there.
I guess it happens across all the Olympic sports. There's an advantage there because you guys, I'm sure you guys push each other in a lot, but there's definitely like a disadvantage from being from such a strong country, like say being from the UK or being from the US or Australia, is ones that kind of jump out. It definitely makes it
Yeah,
harder for you guys to actually just get there in the first place, isn't it?
yeah. So it kind of works both ways. Like for sure, it's harder for us to get picked to actually go to the games, but then for someone like Daniel Dares, who basically represents Venezuela on his own, he's almost lucky to get a spot at the games because he basically we qualify for the last 3 years before this games, and you've got to get points throughout all these events to get a spot. So Daniel Dares has basically got a spot on his own, whereas because we had more riders, we can use each other or everyone's points, so we're almost guaranteed a spot um, because we got so many good riders. Um, but yeah, so yeah, it works both ways. Like as soon as Daniel's secured his spot, he knows it's going to be him.
Yeah, okay, got you.
Um, but for us, we're like just pushing to the last day.
So it's not just a case of Daniel Dares being the top ranked rider from Venezuela. He still needs to earn
Yeah,
Venezuela's
yeah, yeah,
position
yeah,
in the games. It's not a case of just like best rider of that
yeah,
country that you're going to be there. But that's pretty crazy. That you say it's nine. Did you say it was 9 people in total?
yeah, yeah. So basically, nine people got invited, but at the top country that qualified gets two spots. That's why America took two guys.
Okay, got you.
And it was basically like a dogfight between Australia and America at the last World Championships. America just beat them because Brandon Lupo's crashed, but Australia were always the favourites to get two people.
Yeah, I was surprised that I thought it was. I thought it would be Australia. I was surprised to see that. But is Logan Martin very much been like the guy to beat for the last couple of years? Was kind of going in like
Yeah,
that's what it seemed to be from like the outside looking in. Is that the same for within you guys as well?
yeah, like Logan is always the man to beat. But Brandon Lupos can beat Logan on pretty much any day. If Lupos pulls his best run, he'll he'll beat Logan a lot of the time. So Logan's not necessarily unbeatable, but he's the most consistent at getting on the podium.
It's cool. It'll be interesting to see how it all pans out. And I guess there'll be so many other riders that are just like coming through as well. Because 3 years is a long
Yeah,
time, especially in terms of
yeah,
how BMX works. You know what it's like, isn't it?
yeah. We've got Kieran Riley, we've got Dylan Hesse, um, two kids that are not even 20 yet, um, and just amazing riders. So we've
Keeping
got our
the
work cut out.
keeping the old boys on your toes, like.
Yeah, yeah,
How does in terms of like talking about like the Olympic cycles and stuff? How does the sort of support and everything work for you guys? Do you kind of like wait for the funding and then are you basically picked to be on the scheme, the sort of squad, and then are you basically supported in terms of like a salary so you can afford to live and train and not have to go out and get another job whilst training for the games?
yeah. So our place on the squad will is like cemented at the moment. So I'm good for another 2 to 3 years, I think. Um, because I got that Olympic medal, then I think that secures me for another 2 years. Um, but pretty much if they weren't like they could replace people on the team when they want to really. I think you got to give them a fair few months notice. Um, but because we're with British Cycling, they have they get a lot of funding because they bring in so many medals. Um, so we're basically paid by UK Sport, which is funded through people that buy lottery tickets. I'll probably be good for a little while now, but and for people like Kieran and Dylan, I think they're like guest riders for right now.
Okay.
So they're part of the team, but they don't necessarily get a salary yet.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
I'd imagine it will start kind of changing if those two guys start beating people on the team. But until then, I don't really see why it would change.
It's interesting to see how it all works, and like I suppose BMX is a bit unique in that, like you say, it falls under British cycling, which is part of like a bigger thing. Do
Yeah.
you think you guys will get more? Will you guys hope to get more funding though, as a result of you and Charlotte doing so well, or is it all just kind of like disguised within the sort of British cycling sort of umbrella?
Yeah. British Cycling, as I was saying earlier, they've already just put 1 million more in. That's because we got medals. So they can see that there's value there. Because for those guys, it's all about Olympic medals, and then British Cycling as a whole gets given more money for funding, and then they split that money out. But because we've brought back 2 medals now, that's massive. We couldn't bring back any more medals. Like the whole BMX industry will get funded more through that. Um, we won't get it funded anymore. That's just based you get funded based on your results. So and we'll probably get there's different brackets and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, ours will go up now. But um, yeah, it just depends on your world championships results, depending on how much you get funded.
It's definitely not as easy as maybe a lot of people would think. And obviously, you
Yeah,
guys, I'm sure you guys wouldn't trade your life for anything. But like, there's definitely more to it, isn't there? It's not such. It's not
yeah,
just
yeah,
like all plain sailing, is it? In terms of just the performance and the sort of
yeah.
making a living from it. Have you have you been getting inundated with lots of media requests and sponsorship requests and stuff since you got back?
Yeah, we've had quite a lot of media requests. Not too many sponsorship requests. There's been a couple, so we're looking into them right now. But yeah, it's been mad compared to obviously when we come back from the World Championships or any other contest. It's you don't really get too much. No one really cares all that much. But this is just a whole different ball game. I'm on the radio pretty much every day now, and it's
Yeah,
just like it's pretty cool though because I just trying to spread the word about BMX,
yeah.
and it's awesome for the sport. I think.
Do you find it quite weird in some ways that like the event itself, like that competition, it like is essentially kind of happening in various forms, like all the time? Does it feel quite weird to kind of go out and do basically what you always do, but then
Yeah,
the big difference is you come home and it's mental, even though
yeah,
doing all the same tricks or similar tricks. It must be quite a hard one to compute.
yeah. It is like when I got back to my local town here the other day, with the streets were lined. Like honestly, there was
Yeah, I
like
saw that.
1,500.
It's class.
Yeah, and I was just like, this isn't normal. Like,
Yeah,
and it just shows how big the Olympics actually is. And yeah, the whole town have just got behind me big time. As soon as I walk out the front door here now, like people are like because I live on like a main road, that people just see you and they just start beeping.
yeah.
And it's mad. It's mad.
You just cutting around with your medal on, like,
Yeah, I haven't took it off that much to be fair. Everyone just wants to see it, so I just add it in my pocket a lot of the time and just pull it out, and they're like, "Oh, that's sick."
nah, I can imagine it being pretty stressful. Like, where do you even like store it? You need to get a safe or something.
No, no, it feels like that actually.
Have you got what's your immediate plans then? Like at the moment, are you taking some time off, or have you got competitions coming up?
Yeah, so I'm gonna take this month off, and then September probably just keep it quite chill again. And I think in October I'm gonna probably start getting back on it and just spend the winter just plugging away again. There's a couple of competitions that have come up, but I'm not sure what ones I'll do yet.
Is World Cups and World Champs over for this year then?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah, because we had our world champs obviously a couple months back, but there's been no plan to do World Cups yet. Um, purely because travel restrictions still are a bit dodgy.
It'll be cool to see what you get up to for the next few while, and hoping you continue to smash it and getting. It's mad to think like 2024 is literally what 3 years away, so it's like
I know
it'll be
it's
here.
gonna come
It'll be
around
here
quick.
before you know it. How old are
Yeah,
you again?
yeah. 25.
Ah, right, you're still pretty young then. You got
Yeah,
plenty of
got a
time.
little while. The World Championships are in Scotland.
Oh yeah, of course,
Um,
2023.
so yeah, so we'll be up there then. See you there.
Nice. That'll be like that will end up being like well, it's a massive event in itself, but with it being 2023, will that be like a
Yeah.
huge event for qualifying?
Yeah, yeah, because it's the World Champs. That'll be massive. So I imagine our qualifying will start next year. So it'd be like a 2 year qualifying sort of thing. But the World Champs are always the biggest ones because it's like double points up for grabs.
That'd be class. Yeah, I'll definitely come and watch that. It was I used to do like competitive trials, and there was like
Yeah, that'll
a
be
little
there.
part
That'll
of
be
me talking about like, oh, maybe I should like ditch the street bike and get myself like a trials bike and try and make a comeback, but definitely not good enough to compete in that discipline. Do you know where it's going to be and stuff like do you know,
No,
is it going to be outside or probably not in
do you know
Scotland?
what? I actually don't know. Probably not. Yeah, probably not Scotland. No, I've not really heard much at all yet. No.
That'll be cool though. That'll be like because there's not even been a World Cup in the UK, has there?
No.
Before?
No.
Ah, cool. Like you said, you've been to Unit before up in Glasgow. You know what
Yeah.
you know what the Scottish folk are like. You can get pretty rowdy.
Yeah.
So I dare say like a BMX freestyle contest in the city centre of Glasgow will be pretty insane.
I know, right?
Nice one, dude. Well, I've had you for well over an hour now, so I won't keep you for too long. I know you're pretty busy. I'll leave you to go and live the life of a celebrity.
I know, right?
You'll be on Celebrity Big Brother before you know it, like. Or maybe what's it called? Strictly.
Strictly, yeah, Strictly.
If you got asked to do any of that, would you actually be up for it?
Oh yeah, yeah, I'd do it all.
I was actually
I'd probably do one, but then I'd have to get back riding.
I actually think, imagine you could be quite good at Strictly. You've got like the sort of
I don't know about that.
acrobatic stuff going on.
Yeah, we were saying about Charlotte going on MasterChef because she used to be a chef.
Oh, I saw that.
So
yeah,
that'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool for her.
That'd be pretty cool. That's one thing I was actually going to ask was who you had that like good luck video on your Instagram before the Olympics. And it was literally like the heavy, like I'm quite into my football. It was like some serious heavy hitters there. There was like Peter Crouch, loads of other football. Jimmy Bullard was on it. How did that all come about?
So it was so weird actually. Like my brother went to school with a lad that plays semi-professional football, and his dad plays professionally, and we're quite close to that family. So then they just went about their business to just get as many footballers and like big timers as they could, and they pulled through. They pulled through. So
some less like.
Yeah, no, it was pretty cool, but it was like obviously just before I'd rode, and I was like, oh my god, that's even more pressure now.
Yeah, I was gonna say if like there was any like illusion of like, sort of assessing the magnitude of that whole Olympic run and all that, I was like, that could probably help in some way, but could definitely add to the pressure as well.
No, definitely.
Yeah, that's class. Well, stoked it all worked out for you. Thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it. Maybe catch up at some point soon in person. Could do it again.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Definitely.
Should be good. You teach me some stunts on your bike. Cool, man. Right, I'll catch you there. Oh, before you go, actually, what's I'm sure you're getting absolutely hit up like mad on Instagram and stuff with all your new followers, but what's your Insta for people who want to keep up to date with you if they don't already follow you?
At Declan Brooks on Instagram and Declan Brooks BMX on Twitter. If you just type Declan Brooks in on pretty much any social media, you'll find me.
Sweet. Nice one. Well, everyone get on that and keep up to date with what you're up to. Nice one, dude. I will catch you later.
Nice one.
Cheers, dude.
Cheers for having me.
Bye.
See you, mate.
No worries. Cheers, man. Bye.